Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norris Witch, and in today's video I would like to talk to you about the tools of my craft. I know that educational videos are always fun and always good, but a lot of you are very interested in my personal practice, and recently I have not shared too much about that. So today I thought, let's do that. In this video, I've wanted to make this kind of video for a long time already. The initial motivation for that, the initial idea, came from an Instagram trend, an Instagram hashtag. I think it was Albert Sussex Peller on Instagram who started it. I might be wrong though, but it was a trend where a lot of practitioners would share photos of some of their tools. I actually do think the hashtag was the tools of my craft or something. Doesn't really matter. But the gist is, people were sharing the tools that they are using in their craft. And I think that was pretty cool because first of all, it kind of showed the differences between people's practices. And also it showed beginners that you don't actually have to have all of these tools that typical Wiccan books or Wicca-inspired books are always talking about, like a chalice and an athame or athame or however you want to pronounce it. Stuff like that, which a lot of people realized for themselves, hey, I have this lying around, but I don't actually use it. I was one of those people. So I thought I would hop onto that trend, even though it has already been ages old. But I thought it was a good time right now to film that kind of video. So let's get started. I would like to start with the non-physical tools though, because YouTube has the advantage that I can explain things. Showing non-physical tools in an Instagram post, in an Instagram photo, would be much harder. My non-physical tools. I think those are the most important tools for me personally. I think all of the physical paraphernalia are fun and good and well, but without the non-physical tools, they probably wouldn't do much. So first of all, of course, my energy. I mean, duh. If you're not working with energy in some kind of way, how are you affecting change? So I'm not even going into that because that is a given for me. I would much rather go into how I influence energy, how I work with it. One of those things is my voice. That is pretty funny because when I started out, whenever I was using my voice for anything, I felt so stupid. I felt very stupid chanting. I felt very, very stupid calling in deities. So I did a lot of the stuff that I was doing without using my voice at all. I was mute, basically, casting my spells. And this has shifted a lot. I have come to really, really love using my voice for different things. No matter if it's humming to get myself in an altered state of consciousness, or if it's using my voice in a very poetic way to call in deities, or if it's chanting, hello Skadi, or if it's chanting or saying an incantation or something like that. It has become very, very important for me. So this is definitely one of my most important tools. Another one that kind of goes along with my voice is my breath. If you have seen any of my spells that I post on Patreon, yes, I post monthly spell ideas there, like entire grimoire pages that include everything you need to know about this spell. And if you have seen any of those, or if you have seen any of my spell work videos, basically, I'm always saying that I'm using my breath to bring my energy and my intention into an object, or to transfer whatever I want an herb to do into the herb, anything like that. I always use not only my voice, but also my breath for that. So what I usually do is I gather all of my energy, so I build up energy, gather it in my core, and then with one breath out, I will transfer my energy with the breath into something. I think the breath is such an underrated tool, not only for transferring energy, but also to awaken something, for example, to give the breath of life to something. I really, really love that idea. So I use it in all of my spell work. Always. And I just realized, yes, breath is actually physical. So this doesn't necessarily count, as does the next one. But what I wanted to say with that was basically, I'm not talking about something like candle holders or something like that you can buy. I don't know. Who cares? Next one. The next one is blood. I use my blood a lot as offerings to deities and spirits, to, again, awaken spirits, for example, or to awaken a spell, some kind of spell work, to charge things. In the beginning of my practice, I would have probably been disgusted by that, or I would have been afraid of it, but at the moment it is one of my favorite things to do because it's so easy. Blood is so insanely potent. You don't really have to do a lot else. For example, if you want to charge a bind rune or something, just put a little blood on it. Bam, done. Amazing. So it's just very, very potent. That's why I like to do it. It's not that I'm like, oh yeah, blood, ooh, how edgy. It's just that it has a lot of power. It has your literal life energy. So that's why I love to use it. If you want to know more about that, I actually have a video on that here. And then next up, something that most magical practitioners will most probably work with, and that is altered states of consciousness. Most people, when they go into a ritual or they go into spell work, they are doing something to bring themselves in the state of consciousness for a ritual, which is usually kind of like a light alpha state where you're very relaxed, very focused. You can kind of leave the outside world outside and ignore it. So it doesn't matter if that's lighting incense, if that's lighting candles, having specific music on. Most people will do that. And I personally really, really love playing with altered states of consciousness. That also includes trance work. That includes trance work when I'm doing spirit flight, something like that, meditations, utiseta, anything like that includes altered states of consciousness. And that being said, there is one tool that really, really helps me work with that. And with that being said, there is one very important tool that helps me go into altered states of consciousness a lot, that helps me train my meditation and getting into trance states and anything like that. And that is aura. So we're going into a short little sponsor segment right now. Aura is my go-to when it comes to keeping up my daily meditation practice. Its challenges and programs provide an easy way to make meditation a habit, while its daily, personalized content recommendations keep me excited about it. Aura is a mindfulness and sleep app that has won the Best of Apple award and is currently used by over 7 million people. It's a great all-in-one app for your sleep and well-being, with thousands of meditations, sleep stories, and so much more. Aura's content is highly customizable, and it's created by hundreds of expert coaches around the world. Basically like a Spotify for your mind and soul. So if you struggle to meditate regularly, or if you want to enhance your meditation practice, then I challenge you to try it for 30 days using a playlist that I created specifically for you, containing all of my favorite meditations on Aura. It is full of short to medium length meditations that you can easily do daily before work, to make the integration into your morning routine as easy as possible. You can get started using Aura now completely for free on Aura's website by using my special link in the video description. This link will also give you access to the playlist. The first 500 people using the link do not only get a free 7-day trial, but also exclusive 25% off. So let's get meditating. Alrighty, let's go on from here. The next thing is local plants. I have a hard time calling plants spirits and plants tools, but I do use them in my practice a whole lot, so I thought I would still include them. I don't see them as tools. I work with the spirits of the plants, so it's not like I'm simply seeing them as a physical ingredient, but I guess you know what I mean. But I am working a whole lot with local plants. I love connecting to the plants that grow simply around my very, very small local area, connecting with plants that grow in parks around me, for example, or on my local cemetery, trying to figure out how I can work with those kinds of plants and plant spirits in my personal practice. I think that is much, much more fun than buying plants that are growing thousands of kilometers away from you, that you don't really have a personal connection to, you know. I know there are some that you will still have a personal connection to because, for example, they are used as spices a lot, so there is still something that you can connect to those plants. But there were always a lot of plants that simply don't grow here, that I don't have any connection with, and I didn't really know how to use them in my spell work, so I just don't do that anymore. I just work with my local plants, the ones that I can connect with on a daily basis, ones that I don't just buy dried from an apothecary, for example. Getting into the more classical tools or things that you would probably more assume being witchcraft tools, but staying with the plant theme, is mortar and pestle. Very, very simple, basic mortar and pestle. I personally really prefer these stone ones because, I mean, there are metal ones, there are ceramic ones, but I kind of feel like stone ones are much easier to use because they're kind of structured on the inside, so grinding up harder things is much easier with these. I use those so much. I mean, of course, if you are using local plants, you usually want to grind them up to make them smaller to use in spellwork afterwards, because it's much easier to work with smaller plants. And also if you want to make something like oils or something like that, I prefer to kind of grind the herbs down a little bit to extract a little bit of the oils before I put them into the oil. I kind of feel like that makes the extraction of the juices of the plant material much easier. So I use it a lot. And I really like grinding the plants and then chanting over them while I'm grinding. The circular repetitive movement is also very trance-inducive. So I like a good mortar and pestle, a good heavy big mortar and pestle. And we're staying with the plant theme, but going into harvesting the plants. What I currently use for harvesting the plants is very boring, and it is these tiny little scissors. Very tiny little iron scissors. I know some people will scream now, no, you can't use iron for spirits. Nobody has complained to me yet, so I will keep using iron, why not? So, I don't know, a lot of people have fancy knives, and I will go into that after these, but these have been very handy. These are so small that they fit into any bag. So when I just want to go on a quick stroll and I don't want to think about packing tools a lot, I just pack these little scissors and they're perfectly fine. Of course, I wouldn't want to harvest twigs or something with these because they are literally tiny, but most of the plants that I am harvesting are more like leaves or little stems or something, and these are perfect for those. But I do want to make something fancier. I haven't done it yet though, but my best friend gave me one of their plant harvesting sickles. Are they called sickles? I don't know, but these things. They once found 2 of these on a flea market. I actually was with them when they found it, and they gave me one of those. And I thought, inspired by both the Constructing Animism course that I'm taking with Albert, as well as through a book that I read, what is the book called? Elves, Witches and Gods by Kat Heath. Those 2 things combined gave me a lot of inspiration to turn this one into a magical harvesting knife. Because of course, these ones are specifically meant for harvesting herbs. And this one has a wooden handle, so I can perfectly grind this down because this is like coated in something. So I will most probably grind this down and then put symbols on it, for example, and I will oil it afterwards in a specific oil that I have made for it. And yeah, I have big plans with this. And I will most probably film what I'm doing because I think the process will be very interesting and very fun. So this one will in the future be my plant harvesting tool number 1. But right now, these little scissors have to do, and they do. You don't have to have fancy tools. But staying with knives, whenever I do need a knife for something, to snip something, I usually use this one. This is just a very rough iron knife with an antler handle. The antler doesn't necessarily have any meaning. I just thought this knife was really cool when I saw it on a Renaissance fair. So I got it and I really love it. I have used it for anything knife related for my practice ever since. I really like to carve candles with it. Sadly, this is not sharp enough to carve into wood, but for candles, this is perfectly fine. Anything wax related would be great. If I made a wax puppet, I could also carve into it with this. I also, of course, cut strings with it and anything like that. Perfect. Perfect little handy knife. Okay, something else that I actually forgot to bring with me is my fire steel. I have one of these fire steel tools. I will put an image up here. I have one of these fire steel tools that you can use to make fire with. That's a trolldom thing. And I like to use that for protection purposes, for example. I haven't actually made a fire with it yet, but I would love to try that. I would think that if I was to make, for example, a typical cauldron fire with alcohol and salt, Epsom salt, then it would probably be very, very easy to use the fire steel to make a fire with that, and then using that fire for protective purposes. That would be perfect. So anything like that I'm doing with that, and it's very easy. You just use it to make sparks, and then, for example, if you want to protect a room, you create those sparks and put them on the door or on windows or anything like that. But you can basically use that on anything that is supposed to have protective purposes afterwards. Okay, next up, also very, very basic. This will most probably be in any magical practitioner's toolbox. A black book or grimoire. I showed you this one already in my grimoire walkthrough. Does that make sense? Walkthrough? I don't know. Doesn't matter. You can find that also linked. Yeah, this one is great. As you can see, I annotated it. That makes it easy for me to not really stress about which order I put the contents in, because I'm just annotating it by, for example, spells, recipes, information about spirits, anything like that. I just annotate it and then I know exactly where what is. I don't think I have to say a lot about this. I write my spells in here, my recipes. If I do any specific research on some folklore or something, I also put it in here. Spell timing information, anything I need, any information on plants, I put in here. Something else that kind of goes along with the local plants is local dirts. Dirts. Love dirts. A good bank dirt, a graveyard dirt, dirt from the crossroads, any kind of dirt. It's so easy to acquire and easy to use. Perfect. I use that. And also I use different waters which are harder to acquire. So something like a Thursday thunderstorm water, amazing, very powerful. That, or something like water from a north flowing stream. I have not been able to acquire that yet. I have not found a stream that goes towards the north yet, because those are very, very rare. But if I could acquire that kind of water, that would be amazing. I also have not found a sacred well around my area yet, but if I do find one, I will definitely get some water from there. Okay, next, also pretty basic, would be divination tools. I mean, I use a ton of divination tools. My go-tos are usually, you can't really see it. I don't want to drop them, but my runes. My runes are made from kind of sliced antlers. I really, really love these. I made a lot of rune sets myself, but I never really connected with them in the way that I connect to those. So those are the ones I use. And I mainly only use one tarot deck, which is, wait, I have to unwrap it. Olivia, the Witch of Wanderlust, made this wonderful tarot mat for me. Shout out to you, I love it. I use it all the time now. And I only use this deck. I don't have the box anymore because I used it so much that it completely broke. But it is the Golden Art Nouveau deck. I love it so much. It's basically just the imagery of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but prettier, in more of an Art Nouveau style and with golden foiling and stuff. I really, really love this deck. And I'm honestly more of a person who uses one divination tool at a time. So I've never been a person to own like 5 tarot decks or something. I have different ones, but I don't really use them, to be fair. I only really use this one because I love it so much. But I also use other tools, like for example, a black mirror. My black mirror is also very, very important. I love using it to dive into a trance state to make communication with spirits easier. So that is usually what I use it for, especially with my ancestors. I will just stare into this mirror for a long time until I feel like I'm in a very, very trancey state. And then I will start communicating. And at that point, communication is so much easier. The replies simply just slide into my head like a knife through butter. It's very, very enjoyable. I love it. And something else I really like to use that is very intuitive is candle wax in water or egg whites in water. A great intuitive tool. And I mean, basically everybody has it. Eggs are very accessible. Simple candle wax is also very accessible. Dropping that in water and interpreting the shapes that it makes in the water. Very, very easy, very accessible. I love it. Okay, then of course I cannot go without a shit ton of oils. I really love oils and I love making them. It is so simple, but you can play around with it a lot. You can make it very easy or you can make it very elaborate. That's what I love about them. And then you can use them in so many different ways. You can very, very easily incorporate them into your daily life. You can incorporate them into other kinds of spell work. You can use them by themselves or with other things. So that's what I love about oils. Oils are amazing and easy and fun to make. Okay, I'm very basic, honestly. Most of my tools are so basic, but that's also a point of this video, is to show you don't need fancy tools. A simple knife, a simple pair of scissors, a simple notebook, mortar and pestle, and like a simple little thing that you can burn incense in is enough. And it doesn't have to be a fancy copper cauldron like that. I personally love these and they are very accessible. You just have to go in Germany to flea markets and you will find these in abundance usually. So it's not like you have to pay 50 bucks for them on the internet. Just go to a flea market and you will find them. And if you can't find these, you can use so many things to burn stuff in. It doesn't have to be a fancy cauldron. But I personally really like these small things. I used to sell them on my shop. That's why I could always collect these little tiny ones. Because to be honest, I usually don't need a big one because I rarely burn big things because I am living in a flat and I can't work outside. So I can't make a big fire in here either way. So there is no real use for me for a big cauldron. So I have a lot of these small cauldrons to simply burn a slip of paper, to burn a little piece of wood that I carved a rune into, or to simply burn incense. That's what I use them for most nowadays because I am such a huge incense fan. But I not only use these cauldrons to burn incense, but something I've really come to love are these. And these are simply a little sieve that goes on top and a little candle that goes into the bottom, and then the incense goes on top. And these don't burn as hot as charcoal does, which makes the smell of the incense usually much nicer, especially if you're burning flowery incenses with a lot of flower petals, for example, like roses, lavender, stuff like that. They can smell a little bit not so nice when you burn them on charcoal because charcoal gets very hot. But this, not so hot, also doesn't produce as much smoke. So if you're living in a flat, like me, then using these kinds of things can be very, very nice. And you can even make them yourself. Just prop up a little metal sieve over a tea light candle and then drop your incense in it. Perfect. And staying with the theme of candles, I have so many like candle holders. I use candles for so many things, for spirits and deities, for example, to call them in, but also in spell work. They are just very, very convenient. I also really love making my own hand-dipped candles. Very fun. And I especially love these kinds of candle holders. These ones that have a little bowl on the bottom, because I'm not necessarily a fan of putting herbs directly onto my candles. And with these, I can simply sprinkle them around here in this little dish. And that is very, very convenient. So I really love these kinds of candle holders. So I thought it's very basic, but I thought I would include it in this video in case anyone was wondering about types of candle holders. These are great. And then lastly, there's a lot of other tools that I use. Simple things such as iron nails, bones, different kinds of fabric and string for making pouches or working with knot magic and stuff like that. Or just simple pen and paper for making bind runes and sigils and stuff. But I didn't think it was really necessary to show in a video. But yeah, with that being said, those are the tools that I use most often in my craft. As you can see, it's really nothing fancy. Your craft doesn't have to include fancy stuff like chalices and athames and wands even. I don't even use a wand. So you don't really need that stuff. You can get away with pretty basic things if you want to. And with that being said, I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up and ring the bell down below so that you're notified whenever I upload a new video. Feel free to check out my other socials, and in case you want to support this channel, then check out my Patreon or my YouTube membership. And I will see you in another video. Bye!